Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. The I've skipped over one section because I've realized I didn't use it, and it was 4 hours that I sped up, and it's a lot of me just following a tutorial. I'll link it. What I ended up using. Essentially, there's this idea of wrinkle mapping, where you can have a reference state and the actual state, and if you're comparing different face sizes, you can then make geometry nodes fake some wrinkles, or actually like realize some wrinkles. And while that's interesting, I couldn't really make it look good. What you saw at the very beginning with the weird puffiness, or the weird like white and black around certain areas, I couldn't get it to work naturally or anything. You're also seeing me here play with a bunch of weird custom normal nodes, trying to make a little more painterly shape. I believe this one is made from Southern Shoddy. It doesn't work super well on human looking things, and I'm also still playing with fresnels. Fresnels are iffy. You'll see once I actually incorporate normals much later that they can be helpful, but the way that they outline things is very hazy, and it kind of conflicts with the more flat style I'm looking for. It forces these gradients on me that I'm constantly fighting against. And yeah, I've got a good library of painterly node groups. Let me know if you want to see those in more detail. I can speak to them, or I can. I'm thinking of putting most of this up on my Ko-fi. Yeah, so here you're seeing that stuff. It's not consistent. I've deformed the mesh relative. The mesh behind is the reference state, and the mesh in front is the one with deformation. So some bits have been what is it like? I've made bigger. Some bits I've made smaller, and the idea here is I'm trying to use that relationship with the original face size to change the color. And while interesting, it's not consistent. Here, I changed course, and I actually find something I do end up using more, so I do think this is more valuable to keep in. There's this cool rim light shading tutorial. Pretty easy, just using an empty. I'll link that one too. Solid stuff, and I think it makes the model look a lot better. You can get some. Here's me putting both at once. Increasingly, I enjoy more this flat style with this fake lighting provided by the rim. I think, yeah, that looked very much like a Beautiful Joe, old school game. Really like that style. Increasingly, I'm realizing as I keep pushing this that extra color that I'm getting off of that comparison, I don't love my degree of control over that. Neither is it giving me body shape that I'm trying to push. This really does push me to strive harder, learning to apply the normal mapping, to apply the normal mapping later. I'm also realizing that because I do want to animate the eyes, I can't have it on a texture, so I separate the eyes off, and you'll see me fix the actual UV, the texture map. But I try a couple things. One thing with my profile image, I ended up making a small tool that just rotates objects to the camera, and that's what I applied to the eyes here. This one's pretty simple. You're literally just aligning the rotation with the camera. It's not super great, and I'll realize this in only 10 hours, and probably take it off and shrink wrap it back onto the rest of the mesh. But additionally, if that's an interesting node group, I can make a hopefully, if you've watched this far, you could have paused. I think that was legible. But again, if any questions or any interest, holler at me in the comments, and I'll post some stuff. I don't think that's worth much. Anyway, here's me. I'm really just pushing that rim light, playing with some different colors. Again, I really like this flat. I'm playing with some different normals. I believe just using the actual normals ends up coming out the best. That's what I end up using. But I am really trying to find some use for one of my several painterly normal nodes that I've spent a lot of time on. Here's me testing that eye rotation to the camera, realizing, hey, this is kind of already looking like Captain Falcon. I should, roundabout pretty soon, stop. As much as I get in the weeds about sculpting and retopologizing, I will get more in the weeds about shading. I really like being able to see colors change. I always struggled with color theory. And as much as the nodes look scary, it's actually pretty straightforward. As long as everything's just going into that output, you can simplify and you can reuse so many things. I love playing with shaders. I love getting this like pseudo 2D look. I was supposed to rig and then play with shaders kind of as a treat, but I was somehow still able to, do my drug of choice and then sober up and do what needed to happen. So little yay to me for that. But here I am. I'm just finalizing how I want to get that rim light in. Taking a good long while, if I do say so myself. I think I'm playing with expectation. Oh yeah, no, I also have some. I made some hatching tools. And they're not playing nice with this. I think because the hatching tools are actually expecting like a diffuse shader, so it's breaking apart a gradient. Whereas what I have here is basically just a binary in light, in shadow, and my hatching tool where it's trying to find these mid zones, I've called them, and then apply a hatching shading between the colors. It's not finding any mid zones because it's basically just 1 or 0. But yeah, I keep coming back to this beautiful Joe looking harsh colors. Yeah, I need somebody to slap my hand when I'm doing this. So here you can see I'm at most getting just midtones on the belt, really, and on the helmet. Doesn't look great. I eventually realized that it doesn't look great. I'm very actively procrastinating on just opening AutoRig Pro. This is, I want to say, the first simple mesh that I'm trying to rig. I really jumped in the deep end earlier. You can check the record keeping stuff. There's a face that I worked on for like months because I was trying to make a music video, like lip sync to the music video, and she's got a lot of independent hair strands, and I thought that was going to be a good time to do P2 Design's rigging course and also try and stream that. And if you spend a month learning how armatures work, and very few people are tuning in, and the few people that are tuning in are just saying like, "Oh, are you rigging?" They're unimpressed, and they say things like, "Hey, you should use AutoRig Pro," which here I am. I am using AutoRig Pro. I think P2 Design's course might be cheaper. I need to check. I'll compare prices on screen again. But in terms of just time save, the P2 Design course is invaluable. It's like a college level course for like $60, I think. Stellar stuff in terms of like understanding, which is great. And I've worked through probably half of it. I refer to it constantly. However, just like the quad remesher, AutoRig Pro has saved what would be hours and hours and hours. I spent, no joke, months animating not even animating, just rigging. And the reason the face isn't being animated is because even when I did use AutoRig Pro, the mouth is literally glued shut, and I'm losing my mind thinking about it all this time later. But yeah, AutoRig Pro, pretty fast, pretty simple. The only reason this is taking a while is I'm pausing to read the documentation as I'm doing this. I believe this is the first body that I've rigged. I love to jump straight in the deep end, as close to scratch as possible, and just keep starting over from scratch. This one though, I'm trying to push through. Editing these videos has definitely taken me out of the zone for a bit, but I think this is good to reflect on where I can be faster and also provide just a little better shorthand in terms of what works, what doesn't. I I do still scrub through these like 3 hour plus videos to find like exact sections where I'm doing things. But I think having something like this where I'm already scrubbing at like 8x speed is so much more preferable. This also lets me timestamp it and navigate just for myself a bit easier. The big part about rigging isn't the rigging; it's the skinning. And in the time since recording this in this last week, I did go ahead and I've gotten the better skinning algorithm because I'm realizing I also hate skinning. It's great. It's great to just reflect on how much of the process you dislike. The goal is still getting that animated product, right? And I think with little rewards like shading, there's enough in here that I do genuinely love that I'm not. You're hearing me complain, but I'm addressing the problems more than just whining. But yeah, AutoRig Pro is pretty simple. It's not too bad. I might have added too many secondary controllers. Might not have added enough secondary controller. I don't know. First rig, I'm stress testing what what I made here currently, and I'll say, as I mentioned in the last video, there's a bit of forearm jank going on that we'll see pretty soon here that I'm hoping to fix with those secondary controllers. But I do appreciate how the user experience of AutoRig Pro is, while the documentation has some, like a lot, I'll just say it's very much like Blender. There's a lot. And some parts where I have questions, it doesn't go into as much detail as I want, like blink shapes or fish shapes applying poses. Fist shape. I don't know if I said fish. But yeah, lots of things possible there, and it does give you a lot of what you want. You can still see here that, and here this is actually why I end up taking off the Wrinkle map and why I decided not to even include that in here due to how much of a failure it is. Because I'm only moving a hand, the rest of the mesh is still getting this like color discrepancy. Only the part that I'm increasing in size should be getting brighter, and only the most immediate regions surrounding it that are getting smaller should be getting darker. You can see that's not what's happening, as I'll make one area bigger and several areas will get darker as if they're getting smaller even when they shouldn't be. So that ends up being taken out, and I just use some normals, and we'll get into more detail with that when I post the finishing the look video. But skinning is my least favorite part about rigging, because AutoRig Pro took care of everything else. Rigging's really hard only because you have like usually like 3, but even 2 things sharing the exact same space with very similar names is extremely like mentally taxing. I mentioned playing Operation earlier when I was like overly retopologizing a hand. I would say trying to find the way to make this program understand that I want these things painted to be 0 is some of the most frustrating interactions with this software possible. And if you don't get it, you get that weird, like, oh, I'm going to move the head, and the entire, not even the entire, little bits and chunks of noise are just going to move with it. I find that extremely frustrating. Yeah, skinning is honestly the longest stretch of this rigging process, and I spent a lot of time just reading about the rest of the rigging process. But yeah, the big things are you do want to have this like smooth transition between bones, and I think that's something I could be a lot better at. I think having so many floating objects you could have an almost one-to-one bone to floating thing work. The arm is definitely a bit icky. I didn't like how, yeah, right here between the wrist and the forearm, there's a lot that can be fixed. I also don't think that original geometry of that glove is actually as good as I think it is. Because seen from most angles, it's okay in a T pose, but as soon as I start moving it, it starts looking wonky. But yeah, I'll be trying the voxelized heat map skinning engine next time, and I'll be sure to let you know if it's any better. It's worth it to me to at least try, because this sucks to me. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not confident in my ability to symmetrize weight paint at the moment, so a lot of this was doubly long in a way that I don't think it needed to be. Granted, again, a big benefit for aiming for a lower poly style is having fewer vertices to paint. I did also have a lot of fun once the rig was semi-working. I do like animating. It's so cool with shading to get that style you're aiming for. I have so much fun looking at like Twitter and finding other artists, and I think like, oh wow, I would love to make that style and then animate it. So I think I look to that as like a constant source of inspiration, and I'm excited to keep going. And my goal is to finish something before starting a new project, so I have a long list of to do once this project is over. But I have to make myself sit through these weeds and not just constantly start on new things. I think between retopologizing, knowing when to stop on, like saying when things are good enough, and seeing things through, I think those are the three hardest things to continue learning in this Blender journey. And they're not software related. They are, I think, just entirely getting comfortable with the process, I think. And I hope for other artists, seeing somebody's process and kind of reflecting on what has and hasn't worked. See, the shin getting big should only make the faces near the shin getting small go dark. I do take off the entirety of that wrinkle mapping very soon. So don't think you're missing out on too much. You missed out on 4 hours of me learning something that didn't work. So apologies that there was a slight bit of revisionism in terms of what Chapter 2 is, but I went on a big tangent and I came back with nothing. So yeah. I think when I was starting, especially, there was a lot of tentativeness about what certain steps should and would look like. And while I did watch a lot of sped up like sculpt throughs, they either only sculpted or rigging was this like long and arduous thing. I'm hoping with a hopefully digestible amount of time in each of these episodes. You know, each one of these is about a day or half a day, depending on how long your day is. So I wish you luck in your endeavors, if you so choose to animate yourself. Hey, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more, you can get ahead of these videos and watch the VODs of the live streams. If you want to get ahead of those videos, you can tune into a live stream. I'm still ironing out a schedule to stream consistently. That's a stretch goal of mine at the moment. Working too much, working too hard. If this helped at all, leave a like, subscribe. That does a huge deal for me. If you'd like to see any part of this in more detail, slowed down and with greater degree of explanation, leave a comment. I've got the file on me. You know, I'm happy to explore more detail. Better yet, again, come drop into a live stream. Catch me. Find me on Twitter, Ankara, same name, Cut Teeth. Thanks for watching.